I'm Bryce Ellis. I'm up for vice president, be first vice president this next year. And one of the things that the first vice president does is get together the demonstration. So I'll be taking the list of volunteers for the next 12 months starting in June. And Dewey's been doing that this year. He's done a real good job. I came to him, I guess last month, and asked him if he had any openings that he needed to fill, and he said he'd got the next 2 months. And so I said, well, I'll take the next month. Well, he texted me yesterday, and how's it going? It was late in the afternoon, and I'd been working on it all day, and I was like, oh man, and I was joking with him that I had forgot about it, and he came in this morning and he's kind of rattled about it, but we'll go on. So what I'm going to do today is a holoform, and I learned something this morning. And I think I can go back to what I want to get to is these pieces of mesquite, and they're kind of burly. They're kind of if you look in the tree and you see these, they're a swell in the branch. And when they're twisted, they're gnarly, and what happens when you cut these as holoforms, there was a demonstration at SWAT last year that was barely there, but he didn't hollow out the inside. He just drilled a hole down the inside and made a weed pot. But what I have seen, and a friend of mine that does some consignment work at my dad's store, he does a lot of pretty stuff. His name's Morris Cox. And he takes these things and he hollows them out, and then he leaves the voids in there so you can see in there. Now, when you're doing a holoform and you've got voids in so you can see the inside, you've got to take a whole lot more care as to your inside and what it looks like. And if you come and look at these two, they are very raw. I did the outside, and then I started work on the inside, and I had problems. And on both of these instances, because of the wood I'm working with, it's kind of unstable. And when you've got your tool in here, if you get a catch on the inside, it ends violently. And I've split out the side on both of them. And when I'm preparing for this demonstration and I'm working on this stuff, this is where I want to go with this, but I'm not quite there yet. And one of the things that I thought about, I think this is the piece that I was working on last weekend. It still had the bark on it. It still had all of the voids and stuff, and it's pretty messy. So for the venue that we have, I didn't think that it would be a good thing to scatter bark and tree all over the room. So we're going to do something different. This is a pear that is out of our stock at the stuff that's at my shop. And that's what I'm going to work on today. Now I've got this mounted in a faceplate chuck. One of the things that I had, if you noticed on those two pieces of mesquite, was I turned a tenon. I've got dovetail jaws, and I had the problem of, and it was before I got the catch, was there's enough torque on the side of that piece that it pops it out of the chuck. And so I decided that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure out a way to put it in a faceplate and screw it down. This mark here just marks where my screws are. That's the point of I don't want to get there. Yesterday when I was practicing, for some reason, you're still turning on this side, but you're on the inside, but I was unspinning the faceplate off of the thing. So one of the things that somebody told Jim Bob at SWAT a couple of years ago was cut you a leather washer and use that as a kind of a stop, so it won't, now it's secure.
Hey Bryce, what kind of washer did you say?
Just a leather,
Leather?
leather,
Oh, okay.
just a scrap piece of leather.
Old shoe top.
And that's for reversing?
No,
No, it's too.
it's just to make it secure. And if y'all remember the demonstration that Jim Bob was doing when he did that, he was inboard turning and he had this big wheel that he was doing his wall art pieces, and the size of it and the torque on that would just keep spinning, and what happened was the lathe would quit and the piece would keep turning and it would spin off. And somebody will cut a piece of leather and he's, well, I don't have any, you got a leather glove? Yeah, I got that. So,
I've got lots of leather if anybody needs scrap. Lots of scrap.
Who has that leather?
Me, Mary with the school.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll see you out here.
too much.
If you're gonna talk during the demonstration, please go outside, you're interrupting.
These speakers are really good.
Now what I'm noticing on this piece is apparently it wasn't sawed square, so when I squared it off with the miter saw, it's kind of off to one side, but I don't think that's gonna bother too much on what we're gonna do today, because all I wanna do is get a circle here. I'm gonna make it as quickly as I can on the roughing so that we can get into the hollow part, because that's what I think is more important for this demonstration. It's something that we don't do a whole lot of here as far as demonstrations within our club, so I thought that's something that would be different.
Can you explain to them that you, when you're starting, you start in the middle and come out over the end instead of from the end and going in?
Okay, so what Christian asked about was starting in the middle and going to the end instead of coming at the end and coming this way. Now, if I used my other gouge, I'd do that differently. But I'm using a rough and gouge to do this quickly, and the rough and gouge is not made to start on the end. So I'm starting off the end and pushing off to the end so that it doesn't split off on this end. And if I was using my bow gouge, which I typically do when I'm roughing, I would start on the end here and go. what you can see there is, when I get onto this end here, was going uphill and in grain, and that's usually a no-no. You try not to do that, but I'm trying to get closer to my hill there without moving my tool rest. That'll just have to be loose, I guess. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and go to bowl gouge on that to do a little more shape. So there's several different shapes that people do or that I've seen on the hollow turning. Most of them are typically like this. They're either where they go in the top here or they go in the top here, where there's a round edge on the top or a round edge on, kind of like an onion shape. And if that's kind of where I was going with this one, is the onion shape like this, but I wound up with this being more, it was kind of straight on the end. And I'll pass this around so y'all can start looking around it. This was a piece I finished yesterday. And this is another piece that I finished this week that is more like along the lines of where I want to go, where it's going to have voids in it. I didn't know what this was going to turn out to be. This was a piece of walnut. I think I got it from Vans in Idalou, and it had a swell in it. Didn't know what it was going to be. What it wound up being is where the branches had been trimmed off, and you have several places where the branches had been trimmed off, so you've got those places on there. And then I watched a demonstration at SWAT several years ago. I think it's Jim Tankersley. I don't know if he's still with us or not. I think he passed away. But he called it a poor man's burl, where the tree had healed over on the branch, and now if you notice on that, that's gonna be very similar to the mesquite that I'm trying to work with, because it's got a lot of cracks in it. And I don't, so my end goal is to get a piece that is not filled with epoxy or filled with CA glue. Not that I don't like doing that, because I do a lot of that. I do a lot of the filling on there, but I think the air voids, there's a different form of character with that. And one of the things that really originally got me started in turning was looking at vases that they were big vases, but they had those voids down the side in it. And he had hollowed those pieces out and had left those hollows there where you could see it. I guess I will ask, since we've got a good group this morning, would you rather me go entry into a neck or into a ball?
Whatever you feel.
Yeah.
What's going to be the most demonstrated?
Is that what you're giving away?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, if it was, ask the person that won it.
So this would be going in the entry from a neck. So I'd enter in here, hollow out this area in here, or essentially.
This is the other way around.
This is the other way around, yes.
We've seen the neck, let's see the ball.
Okay.
Yeah, that one didn't go
I
around.
didn't go back there yet.
I just showed it to you guys, get started down here.
call that our shape. And I'll leave a little bit of this, so it'll be a little bit of a neck. There's still a little bit of edge there on that side, but that'll be fine. All right, so the first thing you do when you get a hollow, and I drew this out on the board so we can kind of draw and see on the inside, because 90% of the work on a piece like this, you can't see it. It's all on the inside. So the first thing that we're gonna do is drill a hole. We've got some kind of opening right here, all right? And we're gonna do some kind of form here that's round, and we want to take out, I'll do one side, I'll do the bottom side. We're gonna take out the majority of this meat, okay? So the goal is, that's what we're gonna do, is come in here and take out this wood that's inside this piece. And the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go straight in with a drill bit, or I'm actually gonna use a 3/8 spindle gouge. Seemed to work pretty good to me yesterday when I was practicing. I didn't bring a drill bit, so I guess I do have one out in the car if it goes bad. All right, so then you have really two sections of area that you want to remove from this, about, say, probably at 2/3 is kind of the, we're gonna call that the magic number. I don't know that that's exactly right, but that seemed to be kind of the issue. So, and this goes back to why I was having problems with these other pieces. So you start with a straight tool, and I'm going to start with a straight tool. I've got a Rocket Pro straight tool. It's got a 100 carbide cupped carbide on it. And so I'm going to come in here after I've got my hole here, and I'm going to start working out kind of what I have in this general direction, okay? And I need to clear out enough space here inside the lip from my edge for chips. And it kind of, I'll do it in stages where I taper this out. I've got an area right here where I catch chips. It's going to produce a lot of chips on it. Everything that I was producing outside is going to go on the inside, but it contains it because you got a small hole that you're trying to work from. And then, so essentially you're going to have this area right here with the straight tool, and then you cut this edge with the straight tool. And then the only time that you use the curve tool is to get this edge. And so last time y'all had a lot of fun at my expense because I had a birthday. Well, I'm still learning. And one of the things that I watched a video, I got ready and I watched a video this morning about this topic, and the guy was talking about this thing, is when you use the swan neck tool, past this point, so you have two places that your swan neck tool does not work. If you put it, the tool rest, if you put it in the curve, it's going to turn. If you put it back here, you've got that's your stabilization point. Okay, so first thing on the curve swan neck is you always have your swan in front of your tool rest. it works the same way when you get down in this bottom area. And I didn't realize that until I watched that video this morning, he's talking about it. If you get in here and you're off the tool rest and you get a catch down in this area trying to clean out, and that's what I was trying to do. The one that I was preparing this weekend, I was using a negative rake scraper. Shouldn't be that aggressive. Just kind of cleaning against the side, but it's aggressive enough when you've got extension off the tool rest and you've got a swan neck that accentuates the torque. And you've got that torque on a speed that spins it over. And what happened to me was it found a void and it split it out the side. So we want to stay in this area with our swan neck, and we want to use our straight tools in this area. And so I've got a couple of tools that I use that are straight tools. This one is essentially a carbide scraper, and I use it to clean up the bumps on the inside, but this is the one that I typically use. It's the same thing as this, it's just got a heavier. When you get off the tool rest, you've got to have heavier bars. Otherwise you get the chatter, it produces problems in your cut. You have stuff that you've got to clean up later, and it's hard to sand inside these pieces. There's different ways to do it. I've seen and I've practiced several of them. It's not fun when your finger's caught in there. I've used forceps with sandpaper wrapped around there, but the best thing to do is to make a good clean cut to start with. And the pieces that I've passed around, there's no sanding on the inside. I hadn't done any sanding on any of those. It's just essentially I've used a scraper to clean up the bumps along the inside. So we'll go for a little while with the 3/8 Rocket Pro, and then we'll switch over to the Hunter Badger. I guess the first thing I need to do is get down here on the end and get me a hole started. Now I'm also slowing the lathe down because I am drilling on the end of this piece with a spindle gouge. That should get me close. Since I'm doing this with a spindle gouge, I can use it to clear out some of this producing heat on the end here too. I don't know if y'all caught this or not, when I was going around on the face of this, to get a cleaner cut, I came around this way and came this way because I was cutting end grain. You can do it with a bowl gouge, but it makes a cleaner cut to come around this way. Likewise, on the inside of this bowl, when I turn this, it's hot. When I turn this spindle gouge in, just on the side, it catches that side and it makes a clean cut on the inside where I'm getting some shavings cleared out. All right. I'm gonna set that down here right now because it's pretty hot. I don't want to set it on the plastic table. And then I'm gonna start going to this. Now, the thing about carbides that's different than your other tools is they need to be on center. They're designed to cut on center plane. So in every entry point that we go with that, we want to go on center. Now I'm gonna lift it just a tick more because when I rotate, I'm gonna sink my center line down. And these carbide cutters, the optimum range is about 25 to 35 degrees. So I'm not gonna go in here cupped, pointed straight up. I'm gonna turn them and they shear cut when I do that. I had good luck yesterday cutting at about 1,000 RPMs, so that's where I'm gonna go. 1,000, 1,100, it wasn't. Basically my cut, I'm using this hand, I'm holding the torque down here and I'm pulling this way with my tool. So it's a little different for me to get used to that, cutting that away instead of the gouge where I'm pushing and doing all the work with this hand. Because I still want to. That's about, the chatter that you're hearing is about the distance on this tool, 3/8, that it's about the end, or its max cut. So I'm going to go to the next bigger size. And to do that, I got to drop down some. The other thing that I did bring that we don't typically have here is air. That way I can clear the chips out. So one of the things that when we're doing a piece like this, and it works the same way if you're doing a bowl, if you cut all of your meat back here and then you try to cut this area up here, say if you've got a bowl and you cut all of this, and now I've got nearly all of my bowl out there that I wanna do an edge out here. There's a lot of flex and chatter out there on that piece. This would be a bowl, this half. So out here, if I want to do a rim, I can't do it once I've hollowed out all of the wood. I don't have any support. And that's a lot of the reason I left heavy on this side too. So I want to cut and clean this area of this opening before I get all of this support cut out. In order to do that, I am going to the swan neck tool. And I can't do it from here. I've got to move my tool rest back. Because you've got to be there. Now, if you look at that, I'm probably only about safely with this tool about right here. And I've got this already so far back that I can just barely do this edge on this inside. So that's what I'm going to try to do here. You hear the chatter? When in doubt, go to a bigger tool. So this is the swan neck version of the Badger tool, and I liked it so much. I actually won that straight Badger tool at SWAT. I think 3 years ago. Well, when I went back the next year, I said I liked it so much that I was going to get the swan neck version of it. This one, the swan neck version, if you look at it, well, the straight tool's not changed at all. But if you look at the straights, they're not, I have to know that it goes down at about 25 degrees or 30 degrees, somewhere in there. But this tool, it's actually made that way. So it when you look at it, it kind of helps. And since they're modular, I make sure that I put the straight up with the Allen screws looking on that's the straight top of my line. That way, when I turn it over, I know which direction it's pointed in here, since I can't see it inside. I think we're done with that. Y'all see how that torques? When I catch on the back at the backside where it's straight, so I'm catching right in here. I've got a spot hollowed out right here, and I'm catching right here. When I catch and it torques that tool over. I'm trying to get it a little bit. It's probably, I've gone to the swan neck a little faster than what I did yesterday, and for the sake of time. Okay, I'm gonna have to go more straight. So basically, well, look, that one's. And that's what I had problem with my mesquite, is catching in there and torquing just enough that it busts out the side. So that's what I got. It doesn't take much, that's
Design
right.
opportunity.
That's right, so we will cut that away whenever we get to that point. But I'm still gonna leave it there right now, just for the demonstration purposes, because I wanna work through the hole. And if I cut that away, it's gonna be a hollow vessel with a big opening instead of trying to work through the little hole.
I guess this is a situation where one of the laser pins on top, follows the tip of your cutting tool would be very
Well,
beneficial.
The guys that I was watching yesterday and today said that's cheating. And if you're gonna learn how to do it, you need to learn how to do it without that first.
Wow.
Is what, now, Lyle Jameson, we've had him on as a guest demonstrator for our club where we've video conferenced him in, and he's did a demonstration, and he uses that. And Trent Bosch, a lot of my tools are his. The Rocket Pro, I think that's Jakosky used those. But what they say is, the visualizer that Trent Bosch uses, where he's got, so you're paying attention to the screen, or you're paying attention to your light and not paying attention to what you're doing. And you need to learn how to do this by feel first. And if, where we're at right now, so I'm probably right in here. Just probably about by, if I was guessing, I've got my calipers here, but they don't get in all that far until you get, they're good for down in here, but not right here on this edge. You kind of got to feel that. And it's clean right there where I've been cutting. It's not clean on the backside of it because I'm just sloughing away material. But right here on this edge, and that's kind of where you want to work, because you want it clean as you go. And so what I'm trying to describe here is, I don't want something that looks like this on the inside, or like this, because it's hard to sand. On a bowl where you get to it and you can go down to 60 grit and you can start and you can get rough, you can take that out pretty quick. But on the inside where you're working through a smaller hole, that's not possible. So I want to try to, and this is where the feel comes in. I want to bring my tool across this so I get this. okay? And that's where we're going with it. That's nearly the end of my pinky where the fat part of that wood is. Now, I will say this. Yesterday, when I was practicing and doing this, so this is kind of a trial run doing it this way, I went ahead and hollowed out this area right in here. But one of the things that I learned this morning on that video was leave some of this meat in here. Don't take out so much of this before you get all of this taken care of. But that probably cost me this little lip on the front of our thing too. But that's kind of where we're in the learning process.
I sure like the idea of screwing that to a faceplate. That really makes it a lot stronger.
Well,
I think
this right here, if I hit that and I was on a chuck,
Yeah.
it would have come off,
Yep.
or at worst, it would have tilted it
Yeah.
and started to come out of the chuck, and you'd had the realignment. Then when you do that, you have your realignment issues. Does it align back where you were, is it circular where you were working? So. The other thing is, I don't talk to myself in the shop, so y'all are getting a bonus. Is that what they call a consultation?
Keep the wood chips out of your mouth.
Not if you're talking. This is extremely rough where I'm at the edge of that straight tool and the curved tool. But that's okay because it's still meat that we're taking out of there.
How many of your customers are gonna stick their finger in it to see how smooth it is?
It depends on if it's a wood turner.
And do you really care about their opinion?
If
Not
it's
if they've
a,
already paid.
if it's a wood turner, every single one of them. If it's not a wood turner, probably not. right now, I can feel those bumps down at the end of my cut. I've got it smooth right here, but I can feel those bumps down here, and that's what you try to clean up. And you want to try to clean that up as you go. And in the process of that, you also kind of keep in mind of your wall thickness. What I found yesterday that was beneficial to kind of clean that stuff up was Scott Goen he loaned me a couple of swan neck tools from Easy Wood Tools, and I noticed that one of them has a pretty similar cut to a tool that my dad made. And all three of those are carbide cutters. Now the thing that I like about these, that they've got a heavier tang. And it's a wider flat base. It keeps it from turning. You can feel every bump when you get down into that area. So when I get down to this area where I got those bumps, I can feel it. I can feel it on the front hand and the back side because the tool's kind of chattering a little bit. Now, you want to be in control of your tool, but you also want to be light enough and sensitive enough that you can feel those bumps because you're trying to clean them up. I guess some of that's riding on that rough spot where I split out the top side. And that's probably down to right about there. So now I'm pretty much going from this edge, this shoulder back. And I can probably get most of that with the straight tool from where I'm at. I'm probably, with the curved tool, I'm about right there. And my thickness is 3/8 of an inch maybe. I don't know that I'm concerned as much about thickness as not going through the outside for demonstration purposes. This is just something we're playing with, right? I think I am going to switch handles though. One of the things that this last year at SWAT and you go down there and you take your money and you let them take your money. And you go through these demonstrations and, ooh, I need that. So I go in there and I'm watching Trent Bosch and he pulls out this long handle. I mean, it's 26 inches long. And that was one of the, ooh, I gotta have one of those. I need probably scoot back just a little bit. Give me a couple inches. That'll work. That may mess up the where he had it aimed. There it is. For these cup tools, you're cutting in this direction. So the same thing if you're using on the outside when we're using a gouge, I'm pushing with the bevel. So it doesn't necessarily, it has a bevel, but for this cup tool, I cut in the forward. So I'm cutting in this direction, not going back. And I'm ever so slightly backing it off so it doesn't rub. Oh, we got lots of time. As you get deeper in here, you gotta clear out more stuff. Now I'm back to about right there now. Just like you can feel the bumps, when you get enough trash built up inside there, you can tell when it quits cutting. That sawdust in there gets caught up in your tool when it quits cutting. I've got a ridge right there where I've cut behind it. I've cut probably to that shoulder, but I can feel the ridge right there. So I need to clean that up here on the side. And then I also want my taper starts there. So I gotta be cognizant of that. Now, when you do these carbide cutters and you do them on an open piece where you can see what's going on, they do take a lot of material out quick. And they're taking out the same material on the inside here, but it's just all captive. It's not flying around the room. Still a little more of a, that's probably down to about the place where I would say I would go to a scraper type device to clean that bump up. Is what I was talking about with the carbide cutter, the hunter tool, when I'm pulling it this away, that's not where my lip is, where I've got the bump. The bump is on the front side. So that's where I got this one. Barely fits. Just barely fits. That piece that broke off. It'll make a hole big enough. So
One way or the other.
one way or the other. So you can see how I get pieces that look like this, that have come out. And I can't turn it enough to get over into that spot anyway, so I'm gonna have to do it the hard way. I'm about in, not quite, I got about quarter, maybe 3/8 of an inch to the bottom of the hole that we started. So I'm about to there. It's probably something like this. You know, I've got, down here in the bottom, I've got my depth, and I'm about a 1/4 inch or so off the bottom of it, because I can feel the bottom of it with my finger, but not quite. We're just gonna have to do it with that one. Okay, so that was about the back end of the, it's gotta be, yeah, that's right at the back end of it. 'Cause the thing about these cup carbides, they catch good, and when you're cutting on there, when you're catching the edge. So when I'm catching the edge right here on the side of where I've drilled down to the, but once I get to that bottom, it doesn't pick up as good. It does, but it doesn't. It's not like the flat carbide that will shave off regardless. I've almost got to, when you do a gouge, you've got to put that point in to get your cut started. Okay, that's the same concept as what I have on these cup carbide tools. I've got to get that cut started in order to go around. And that's how I knew I hit the bottom.
Is the cup addressing the wood at 90-degree angles? You're being pretty careful to put it in dead level every time on the camera, but that flat easy tool addresses that problem for you.
Well, the flat tool, you want it flat. So this, let's see if I can get it to the, let's get it on the tool. So the flat tool that's on my right, I want it level. When I'm introducing this in, I go in this way, but I rotate it.
Okay.
Because I want it at about 25, 30 degrees.
See when you're just stabbing it in there.
Well, I don't know if you can catch it off of the, right here's my sights.
Okay.
And I'm ever so slightly turning them towards me. And the edge here to me.
So it's not addressing at 90, it's straight?
No.
Okay.
No. And then these cup carbides, if you put it in there straight in, it will grab and throw it across the room. It's very, very, very sharp, very, very aggressive when what's the word?
90 degrees.
Well, 90 degree, when you introduce, that's what when you introduce this at 90 degrees, it's very, very aggressive. And that's how I know there's a sweet spot, and it's between 25 and 35 degrees. And there's a sweet spot in there, and you can feel it when you've made this cut several times.
So that's why that tool is not flat. It's a round bar so you can rotate it.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And I didn't bring it, but I have one that's on a flat bar. It's about 3/4 flat bar, and it's got the same offset that this one has. It's got the same cup tool that this has,
Is it torqued? Is it
but
off?
it is
totally
off
rotated?
center.
Okay.
It's rotated. So it sets that tool at like that. And if you notice, this was even more. So that's at 90 degrees right there, but this cup is slanted. And you can't introduce your tool like this in there because you get off center. You should be straight in line with your center. So if you're building a tool like what this one is that my dad built, and he built several for Morris Cox, and that's what he uses, he likes the best. On the swan neck, the important thing about the swan neck is your tool is straight in line with the shaft of the tool.
Absolutely.
So that when you're inside this vessel, you don't have, if it's off to the side over here, it's going to torque it one side, one way or the other.
Bryce, carbide tools are scrapers,
Yes.
but if you turn it a little bit, it starts to cut. So
Well-
that's how
These are cutters, not scrapers.
yeah.
The cupped.
The cupped ones are cutters, yes.
So, and that's what that's what I have, and that's what I'm using.
So Bryce, are you level or are you at an angle?
No, I'm level. When I introduced it, even this swan neck tool, I'm putting it in like this. I'm letting this be the angle. Now on this other cup tool that's straight, when I get it in there, I rotate it. Or I put it in rotated to start with. But basically I line up my sights on here so that I know which side is straight up. Whereabouts are we on time? 30 minutes? So I can see where I'm at right there. It's about 3/8, 7/16, probably more 7/16 or half. Just little, there's that bump right there. If this was gonna be a finished piece, something that I would want to sell or showcase, I would definitely want to take it down smaller than where it is right now. But it's pretty uniform. It gets a little bit thin there at the bottom. And that's because I need just a little bit right in here, but that's where my bump is. I can feel it, but I can't quite get it out.
Russ, when you have a bump like that, you try to hit it in the center and feather it to each side, or start at the
I
beginning?
think that's gonna be a little bit too big. Do what?
When you have a bump like that, do you hit it in the center and take it down, or do you hit it from the side?
Yes.
All right.
You got to get a tool that'll do it. And so if I could see if I could cut away and we could see what this is, where I'm at, where that bump is, it's where my swan neck finished going this way and where the straight tool comes in like this. It's right there. So if you look at my fingers, I've got a little bump, and that's what I've got. I've got a little bump right there, and I can feel it. It's right there, and it's right at the back side of the swan neck, and it's right at the front of where. And when I tried to get over here like that to get it, that's when I lost the rest of that lip that came out. So I have one other tool that I use, and it's a scraper. It's just a little small tip scraper that I can come in, and I should be able to catch just enough of that to. And we're, right there, I can feel it.
Did you pre-drill that before you started cutting?
I did with my 3/8 spindle gouge.
Yeah.
And when you do that with spindle gouge, you introduce it up like this. It doesn't cut, but you turn it over to the side and it'll go straight in. And I had to feed it out, and that's why it's laying down there, because it gets hot like drill bit.
But when you're being any advanced, like using a force bit, it's still all over.
If you have a bigger piece, yes. If I was going to do it, I mean, for what we're doing right here and what I'm demonstrating, I've got a 1-inch hole and I've got a 3-inch piece. So I don't know that, you're not going to use a 1-inch Forstner bit all the way down. I could have, but the way I started this, the first thing I did when I got here was take the tool rest or the tailstock off. And that's one of the things that you can, that safety-wise, you can do away with if you're working off faceplate. You're pretty confident that your piece is secure on the lathe. And I don't need to have this back pressure this way, like I would with the tailstock. You know, most everything we talk about when we're doing that, for safety reasons, we want to have back pressure on this so it doesn't fly off the lathe. You've got 2 points. But I know I have a positive grip on this, and unless unless something bad happens and I strip screws out, it's not coming off. And I will tell you, yesterday, I hit this 1221, one of the club lathes is sitting in my shop. I pulled it out just to practice with. I shut it off before I torqued it enough to mess it aired out. So just be aware that you can shut it down. Now, I got a little bit further back in there than I would typically like to, but I got that little bump out. And then, so the good thing about this tool is I can take this, I don't have the right size. I can turn this tip around so that I can get it, enter in a little bit steeper. If I change it from this angle to this angle, I can clean up closer to this edge here. And right now, the way this is set, it won't grab. The cutting edge of this is back farther in than the flat area here won't cut. It's not sharp, it's only sharp on the tip. And basically what I'm doing, I use this is scraper, so I can come back in and clean that up. And the one that I got from Trent Bosch, it's a curved neck, but it's got a negative rake tip on it. And so you get, one of the things when we clean up our stuff with the negative rake, I can do that on the inside now, and that's some of the pieces that I passed around that I've cleaned those up enough. Now this piece that's Leon's, I'll pass it around. It's the same thing. Make sure you get it whenever it gets back to you. It's got my name on it, but it's yours. And that's a piece of cherry. I didn't sand on the inside. And one of the things that I like to do, and I like, once I started watching Stuart Batty and how he did his bowls and he did his push cut, and that's kind of where I learned that was probably the greatest influencer of my turning ability. When I started really getting into it and learning, I watched the 7 Fundamentals of Wood Turning by Stuart Batty. And one of the things that he always talked about is doing a push cut, but making a clean cut so you don't have any torn grain. And when you use scraper, you get torn grain. When you use a negative rake scraper, you don't get it as much. And so on the inside here, you can do that negative rake scraper, and I would use that on this one, but I'd have to make a bigger hole to get it in, because it is a teardrop shape and it's a little big to get in here. But if y'all want to, you can come and feel on the inside. Now don't grab a hold of the corner there, but you can feel it. There's a little bit right there on the back side. I'm going to hit that right quick just to kind of clean that up. And then you can come and I am going to go ahead and use the scraper on that. as I can reach. If you noticed, one of the things that I was talking about earlier about the swan neck tool being back inside that bump that I was trying to get was right about here. And I'm trying to clean it off, but because I can't get the straight scraper in there inside the hole, I'm using the swan neck tool. It was torquing it. And I could feel it torque it. So it turns it, and you can feel it. But now that I got that cleaned up, it's just about now that we got that hole on the front, you can feel all the way to the bottom, and you can feel it's a pretty clean cut. You have any questions? We've been kind of talking as we go, so does anybody have any specific questions?
Good job.
On the videos that you were watching, did they use a holding device or did they do it all freehand like you did this morning?
So Trent Bosch uses freehand, Lyle Jamison uses his captive end tool. One of the guys that I watched, the guy that I watched this morning, he was using the Lyle Jamison captive with a laser. And the laser, it helps you to know where your tip is. And so if you want to spend that kind of money to get that, and I actually have that, I didn't bring it because it doesn't fit on this lathe, but I've got a superior articulating arm that I use some on my Powermatic. It has a laser, and the laser you can set it right at the tip, or you can set it out. You kind of set it around this general area right here. Here. So if I look at this tip right here, my fancy new pen. You can set it to your wall thickness, where your laser is. And that way that you know when you stick this tool in here, whether it's straight or swan neck, where if I've got my laser set off at a 1/4 inch wall thickness, and how you watch this is at the point where your tool reaches the wall thickness, the laser shoots down the side. And it's a definite dot right there, and then it's long across the edge is what happens. So what?
Does anybody make a tool that has sort of like a ball end that's think like a file, but where it would.
Yes, Cutsall makes it.
Cutsall makes it?
Mm-hmm. And it's got carbide teeth on it.
Okay. Would that be a useful thing?
I don't think so, because whatever the driver is, you got to be able to accommodate the hole.
Right.
And you also have this spinning. And I think if you've got something like that that's aggressive with teeth, you're gonna have problems.
Yeah. Okay.
Even on my long nose die grinder that I use sometimes, but I don't use it on the lathe. The captivated tool arm that Scott was asking about, so like the Lyle Jamison, you have this tool rest,
Right.
and you have another tool rest that comes up back somewhere on the back side of the lathe. And it has top and bottom. And typically for his system, it's got 2 bars that go in and come back and make a connection here so that that whole arm is going in and you're moving it this way. And if you're gonna do bigger pieces, then yes, you probably need to do something with the captive arm because it does get violent in torque, especially if you get one of those spots right there where I had in the middle. It's still a little bit. I can still feel a little bit. It's probably not as clean as I'd like it to be. But he's got different sizes, and I didn't bring my big tools because I knew I wasn't going to need them to work. But the last year at SWAT, I got a set of 3/4 inch bars from Trent Bosch of the straight and the swan neck, and then the swan neck with the that negative rake scraper on it. And this, so I've got another set of bars that's 3/4 inch. This is 1/2 inch, and that's 3/4. And then the pieces that I was using today that are the Hunter Badger are 5/8. And then to start and do the little work, and the one that I did with that little cherry bowl that's Leon's is the 3/8 Rocket Pro. And you can definitely tell on the size when you reach the max. And you know, just like when you get your tool off the edge of the tool rest to a place where you start to get that chatter, you get that on the inside too. I mean, it works, you know, it's funny how it works the same way. You're just cutting on the inside versus cutting on the outside where you can see it. And it's the same concepts, but you have to be able to hear it and you have to be able to feel it. It is, the inside is definitely a feel. And, you know, at this point on this piece, if I was gonna go ahead and finish it, because we're at 1/2 inch. I'm just gonna say 1/2 inch. And I wanna bring it down to 1/4 on the wall thickness. I would start to, you know, as much as I would have to blow this out, I wanna stick that tool on there and find out what my wall thickness is. I'm gonna check it, and I'm gonna check it often. It's kinda like when you're sneaking up on the edge of a box or sneaking up on the edge of something that you've got to have critical thickness. You want to cut a little bit, check a bunch. I'm kind of disappointed. The outside here is an ugly cut. And that's what's going to show up on the video. That's what everybody's going to see, how ugly the cut is on the outside, because I can see I got a lot of bounce. Any questions?
40 grit sandpaper.
Well, my disclaimer on that was we were more concerned about the inside than we were on the outside.
Yeah.
But you'd still be able to finish that anyway, outside.
Right. Yeah, I can go back and clean it up.
Amazing job.
I'll just pass it around.
What kind of screws do you use on yours?
Actually, I had that out. That was one of my talking points, and it's the first thing on the table, and I forgot. For using on the faceplate, I've got sheet metal screws, and they are 1.25 inches long, and it's about 1/4, 3/8 of an inch on the faceplate, so you're a good inch down in the wood, and that's why I marked it. the piece that's going around, it's got a mark on it. This one's got a mark too. And I just, things happen when you're in demo. And one of the few things that I remember distinctly about doing a demo was getting down into the chuck and the piece coming off out of the chuck, bouncing off the lathe and hitting me straight in the face mask. So I marked it. This was the piece in case I blew that one up.
So you try to find the pieces that have like that bark inclusion in it?
Yes.
That-
That's what these other two pieces are.
That'll end up giving you that void.
So I can see on this piece right here, there's a spot right there where it was, and if you look at the edge of this piece looking down on it, it looks like a clover. And so you have twisted stuff in here, you have scallops around the edge, and in those places of the scallops, you have where the bark kind of, it didn't grow that way in, it grew that way out. And this one also has some burley in it. So it's got that burl grain in there, which is altogether
Do you wrap those
different.
pieces with packing tape or anything?
No. I don't. And, this one was already open when I started it, and because it came out of the chuck and leaned, and I never got it back center, you can tell where the center is off center on this one. And I don't know if I'm gonna cut this off and screw into it and try to finish it, or if I'm gonna go from there and just chunk it in firewood. But, these are the pieces that I have been on the lookout for going around the pasture when I'm riding around at my dad's ranch, his farm.
Are those coming out of that mistletoe looking stuff out of the?
Some, yes.
Those swells?
Yes. And that's kind of what it is. But it's not always the mistletoe. Now the mistletoe, you get a whole nother, because mistletoe is not a native plant to, it's an actual plant growing out of the tree. So you get a whole.
It's a parasitic plant.
Yeah, you get a whole lot of different stuff in that than you would just a piece that's swelled on the branch. And I won't say a whole lot about burls, I'll leave that for another day. But one of the things when you're doing a piece like this, or you're doing a bowl or something with a burl, you're dealing with different, going back to that 7 fundamentals of wood turning, one of the things Stuart talks about is the grain makes a difference on your cut. Well, when you're cutting across a burl, you have long grain, in grain, and you may have it on the same plane. And we talk about that when we go to bowl turning, that you've got so much torque there that you can't use something with a small tang on it to cut it. Well, in a lot of ways, burl is the same way. You really need to use a gouge. But that doesn't work with the tools that we have for doing a hollow. And there's a ton of people, if you go and look up hollow form wood turning, you're gonna see every other one or every third one is somebody turned a burl.